This program features interviews covering subjects that some listeners may find triggering. Topics that could be discussed include suicide, self-harm, drug addiction, mental illness, domestic violence, and gang violence. Opinions expressed here on the Why You Crying Fu podcast do not represent Reshaping Identity, 805, or any supporting organizations. This program is made possible and part of the state-funded California Creative Corps through a grant awarded by the California Arts Council and administered locally by the Ventura County Arts Council.
My name's Fernando Albert Salinas, and this is the Why You Crying Fool podcast. One tradition that we always have is to have our guests say or ask, why you crying, fool? So I want to give you the opportunity to do that.
Why am I crying?
No. You don't have to explain why you're crying. Just say the intro. Why you crying, fool?
Okay, then I can start.
We'll
You're the young generation, man. I don't get all your words and stuff.
No. So let me tell you about the
Okay.
why did we title it? Because ideally all of this was made possible by the California Arts Council and the Creative Corps grant that came to LULAC and then kind of has been redirected to me as the artist. And with that, what we're trying to do is raise awareness for mental health, mental wellness, and education and access. And Why You Crying For comes from the culture being raised in a culture that doesn't accept the demonstration of tears or pain, or we're taught to be very tough and very traditionally machismo upbringings.
Yeah.
And so that's where the title of the show comes from. Now you know why. The pain that I've been through, the struggles that I've overcome to get to this place today.
That's nice.
So that's really the concept there.
Yeah.
But Bill, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? We'll get started. If you can say it if you want to, but you don't have to. I don't want to pressure you into.
Well, my life's been pretty interesting, but I guess I was destined to do this. I mean, I don't have enough tears or pain. I mean, I have cancer probably because of my resistance and what I did in education in my community and for my people. So I've done enough reflecting, I was born in East Los Angeles, June 2nd, 1949, to two beautiful people, Guillermo Terrazas and my mother, Gloria. I was raised in East LA until I was in fourth grade. Then we moved to Monterey Park. But I thank my parents for giving me the strength. I have an older sister that gave me a lot of strength. But I had no idea I was going to go into education because from the school point of view, I was a failure. I was a Mexican, and no one ever motivated. I never had a Mexican teacher until I was in the university.
Wow.
And I knew nothing about my culture. But I was a very proud Mexican-American because my father was on the second wave of D-Day. My father went to Roosevelt. My mother went to Lincoln High School in the heartbeat of East LA, Boyle Heights and Lincoln Heights. And my father went to war after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor when he was 17 years old. And he came back mortally injured, a quadriplegic. All-city basketball, Pan American Games diver, cut school to go to the Pan American Games. But then when he went to war, when all the Mexicans from high school went to war, because that's our people, man, we're warriors, my father left us, and he came back 100% disabled, mortally wounded. He was in about, the sixth or seventh wave of D-Day. That was our biggest, bloodiest battle in history. And my father was there looking at his brains out of his head on Omaha Beach. Didn't know where he was, probably scared to death. And he has half of his body's paralyzed. He walks with a severe limp. As far as I can remember, and at one time I was ashamed of my dad because I didn't know his history. I was a little kid. Everybody used to stare at him, and he lost his speech, his memory, how to walk, everything. But he made it. And my mother, she was a beautiful woman, strong, brilliant woman. but she had cancer when she was in her mid-20s after she had us. So, I've been through a lot of struggle with health and with my father, which later on I know that gave me strength to do what I, like to do my life's work. Going to school, like what I was telling you, Fernando, in elementary school, very little racism, because, I went to the schools in East LA for my first 4 years. The first 2 years, I went to Sacred Heart of Jesus. But the nuns beat the hell out of me. Because, I wasn't the best kid. I've always been ADHD with H, hyperactivity. Mm-hmm. So all my life, I've had a Lamborghini brain, fast moving, lots of energy, but tricycle brakes. I couldn't stop myself. So, but that was an asset. Being ADHD really is an asset. It's only an impairment. It doesn't make you dumber or smarter, but it's like if you can't see, you put glasses, you can see it more clear. Right now, I'm on antidepressants as a senior ADHD guy, and it's really affected my life, but it gave me a lot. It gave me a lot of tools because people that are ADHD have a lot of passion. We hyper-focus, and our mind's moving, and we have an extremely amount of energy. And what we're going to talk about later is my health. My health, I learned about energy. When you're healthy, that's the main sign of good health is energy. And I got abundance of that, but when I got cancer and I changed my whole lifestyle, I got more energy. Okay, going back in my elementary years, in the Catholic schools, they were very strict. They used to beat the hell out of me. They used to have a line in the center of the playground. The girls on one side, the boys on this side. If you crossed the line, Sister Mary Castle had a stick. She'd beat your ass. And then if you were bad in the classroom, they whipped your knuckles. When I was in second grade, I was like this because I was so beaten up by them. So my mother decided, you got to get out of Catholic school or you're going to be. And I think that led to my stuttering. I was a severe stutterer. Okay? When you stutter, people think you're automatically stupid, And I did too, because, people used to make fun of me. And I stuttered all the way through high school. Not severely, because I gradually grew out of it, especially being a teacher, my 40 years of being a teacher. But anyway, I was a stutterer. And then as I moved to a white area, predominant white area from Boyle Heights, East LA to Monterey Park, which is only a hop, skip, and a jump. Right next door to East LA is Monterey Park. 90% white, okay? I went to a white elementary school, but I had fun. Went to a white high school. I had fun too. But I think because I was an athlete, and I was a very good athlete, I was a captain of my high school teams, I got away with a lot of stuff, but I seen my friends suffer. The only racism I received from high school is some of the teachers wouldn't pay attention to me. My counselors wouldn't let me take college prep class. They made me feel inadequate. My teachers and my counselors would say, you are not college material. You're not going to, why sign up for the test? Why fill out the applications for the university? This was in the 60s, 1966, 67. So right away, I had no self-esteem other than catching a football, running for a touchdown, which was good enough then. It gave me a lot of confidence, which sports does. It gives you a lot of leadership. I don't know did you play sports in high school?
Tennis,
okay. It gives you a lot of discipline and leadership skills. So anyway, I used to have a real good counselor. Her name was Mosier, but, I had easy classes, My senior year, I had print shop, wood shop, what else? Physical education, auto shop, and then I had algebra teachers. I know,
all skills-based.
I know, but you know what? I made more money from skills-based than education because later on I'll tell my story. I went into construction.
There you go.
I'll tell you that later, Fernando. So anyway, I did have racist teachers that. Our shop teacher used to line us up and say, you Mexicans, you Mexicans this, you Mexicans that. And I had them for algebra too. I never learned algebra. I was, I loved mathematics, but they destroyed my curiosity, my everything, they just destroyed it. So I was thought in high school that I wasn't going to go nowhere. But the ones that educated me, since I was in a white high school, my fellow athletes were gabachos, privileged. They lived up on the hill. I lived in Monterey Park up on the hill, probably the only Mexican family. But I learned from my friends, hey, where are you going after high school? I'm going to East LA College. I'm going to Cal State. I'm going to SC. So I said, wait, what? Yeah, man, didn't you take the SAT? Didn't you sign up for this? What are you talking about? My counselors and my teachers never pointed me that way. Mm-hmm. I never had a Mexican teacher. So was that a black teacher was unheard of. This was in the late 60s. So anyway, lucky for my parents and my sister. My sister's a beautiful woman. She's in trouble right now with health. She has like pancreatic cancer. But she's gonna make it though. She's on chemo right now. Well, she was going to East LA College, and my sister was a great athlete also. And my sister was Miss Everything, But she was going to school in East LA, so she would succeed better because they were all Mexicans, where I was maybe, Mark Keppel High School, I was maybe 7%. And it was a giant high school, 3,000 students.
Wow.
But I was popular because I was a jock. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started to notice privilege, because my homie from San Gabriel, they were getting busted. They were getting thrown out of school. Maybe because they didn't have the family I had. They didn't have the discipline from sports I had. But I seen oppression then, But, I have to admit, I had some high school teachers that really helped me. So anyway, I stuttering and low achieving. I didn't do my best. I graduated from Mark Keppel High School with maybe C minus D. Oh, and I forgot to mention they gave me visual aids, show movies in all the classes. But I graduated with D's, probably because of my self-esteem, But I learned something, So anyway, I went to East LA College, which I thought I could make it. And East LA College, as soon as I walked through the door, I went to the counseling department, and they tried to discourage me.
Really?
A counselor actually picked up my hand and said, Terrazas, you see these hands? They're not for you, college or university. They're for working on a Veris at the placitas, making pottery or picking limones on some ranch or being a mechanic. Being academic ain't for you. So I went back home to my mother. I said, Ma, they don't want me there. I was kind of glad because I don't like school that much anyway. I mean, when you're a low achiever, who's going to like school? Because they put you down. They don't give you any motivation. Everything goes towards the athletes or the ASB or the cheerleaders or the honor students. Nothing goes to the Mexicanos, and I'll tell you the story about that later. When I actually became a teacher, I had no idea. Well, anyway, I went to East LA College, and I didn't know what I wanted to be. I was majoring in sociology, and it wasn't that bad. But I had one teacher. Her name was Moreno. She was a güera. I don't know if she was Mexicana or she married a Mexicano, but she was a really positive sociology. It was Sociology 20. I always remember at East LA College. And then when I was just graduated from high school and I was going to East LA, that's when the movement started. Mm-hmm. The walkouts, the blowouts at Lincoln High School, the revolution in Watts. They killed Kennedy. They already got Martin Luther King. So it was hot when I was going to East LA College. Army tanks. And the National Guard were going around the university waiting for the Mexicanos and the blacks to uprising. And but what's ironic is when I was going to Mark Keppel, I had a girlfriend. I used to walk her. She used to walk me home all the time. Her name was Debbie Gates. Does Gates ring a bell to you?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of Gates, but
Daryl Gates.
Yeah.
Okay, that was Daryl Gates' daughter.
Wow.
And I didn't know that. But he was my Pop Warner football coach.
Is that right?
He was my brother's coach more than me. But I was dating his daughter, and I would go to the house. They treat me like a millionaire. He used to play catch with me in the football. But I didn't know it was the Daryl Gates because he was a good man. He helped maybe later on as he became a cop, working in the barrio, working in Watts, you develop a hate or something. But he was a good man then, which I can say about some of my administrators then. Well, anyway, in the Sociology 20, I was working work-study in the Maravilla Projects, East Side Boys Club, the heart of East LA. Every square mile is a gang. I was in the gang because I was raised in Monterey Park. I was lucky because my mother and father took me out of the barrio. I mean, I didn't know it then, but when I was aquatics director, athletic director at the Eastside Boys Club, right off of Brooklyn Avenue, across from the Maravilla Project, every block, Arizona, Mariana, Lotte Mara, White Fence, La Loyo, all the gangs were right there, man. Mm-hmm. And I was a Chicano, but I was also a whitewashed pocho Mexican. And a lot of people, and I had a hard time explaining this to my students, why I was limited Spanish speaker. And I got a lot of discrimination from us, especially when when immigration started coming into Oxnard. But when I was younger and starting at the Boys Club and college, people would say, well, how come you don't speak Spanish? You're a Mexican. I go, yeah, but I was born here. Mm-hmm. I'm more white than you are, man. But my mother and father always thought, hey, you're a third, fourth generation Mexicano, Mexican. And my father was into, you're a Mexican American. You're an American first, because he fought for this country, my father. He was a war hero. And so anyway, as I was growing up, I had to fight. I mean, I was good with the slang, but I was never a cholo or anything like that. But all my cousins were, because all my cousins were from East LA. The familia was East LA. Well, anyway, as I was in the Sociology 20, and that's the way I am. I'll go off on little tangents that strike a memory that's related to my history. Before I go on, since I stuttered and I was terrified to speak. So as a student, I've always been terrified that they're going to ask me to read or to speak. That's a very vital thing in my history. So I always cover up, or I would say I got a stomach ache if I was going to speak, or even say my name, Fernando, because I stuttered. And it wasn't a bad stutter, but it was first it was da 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 da, then to stop the da da da, I would go like that to stop it. That's how I can control it. So sometimes it would be extremely embarrassing. You go in front of the school, my name is for a long time, and then Guillermo. And then I had a goddamn tough name to pronounce, and I was a pocho. Guillermo Terrazas. So you could imagine Right. So that was tough for me. And man, I felt so stupid, but I didn't know God was putting strength in my heart and my gut that, you got something in front of you, you're going to need this hardship. Now that I'm 75 years old and I look back at my life. So anyway, in that one college, and that was I said, Lala, I can't go to college. Ma, Dad, I can go. I stutter, man. I'm terrified to speak in front of socially, shoot, I was a social animal, man. People love me, girls love me, people love, but me speaking, forget it. Academically, I thought I was stupid in high school because the way the counselors treated me. You Mexicans can't do shit. So anyway, I told my sister, I'm not gonna go, but she says, you gotta take Moreno, Sociology 20. And I was working at the Boys Club at the time. I was 17 years old on the work-study program. I was in class, and okay, students, Miss Moreno would get in front of the class. Real good lady, man, tall, blonde. I guess she's Latino, her husband. She says, okay, you're all gonna do investigations. And I go, oh man, that's it, man. I'm gonna expose myself. People are gonna laugh at me, point fingers at me. What the hell am I gonna do? So anyway, I had an idea. She goes, Terrazas, you're the last one. What are you gonna do? Come on, man. And we even went up to my desk. Hey, teacher, I can't talk, man. I never did this before in my life. But I always had my strong voice, and I always had my energy from being ADHD and a fast mind. And she says, well, where do you work? She goes, I go work at the Boys Club in Los Angeles. I go, well, is there gangs there? Yeah, why don't you do it on the gangs? And boom, something went off in my mind. She says, okay. So I went back to the Boys Club, and I talked to some of the gang members. Hey, man, would you like to come to the university class with me and tell about your existence and what you guys do? And they loved me. I was their coach.
Okay.
I was their coach, and the gang leader was right over. I was a lifeguard for all that time. Right over the wall was the leader of the gang. One of them, his name was Pom Pom, and his brother, and he was a big homie, and he was only like 15, 16 years old, but he loved me. And all my cousins were gang members, and they loved me. But anyway, this gang, it was called Lotte Mara. I said, you think you can give me about 5 of your friends to come to my class, and we'll talk about gangs? I'll buy you lunch, give you some beer or anything, man. And, I was 17, 18 years old. So So I went back to class. It was my turn to give the thing, and I had a little panel of gang members. and you know, puros gringos in my class, they all got up front, you know, homeboys, you know, and orale, my name's Junior, man. And they call me Deadbeat, you know. And look, I got shot here, I got stabbed here, I got jumped, they busted my arm, tattoos all over, man. You know, it was like that. It was good, you know. And and then I would ask them questions, and the class would, and they did beautiful, you know, with their slang, with their cussing, with their tattoos, with their wounds, their scars in their faces from gang, and they talked about the culture of a gang in East LA. And then after it was over, I was the hero, man. How did you do it, Terrazas? And what's her name says, man, you are a genius, she told me, you know, a college professor. And that clicked it for me. I says, man, hey, you can do something in the world, you know? So anyway, that kind of set me off. And being an athlete, I was always at the gym. An important thing in my life is after East LA, which they had no sports, no little leagues, no recreation, for all the young gente, nothing, just discouragement. And when my mother moved me to Monterey Park, my mother must have been a genius, man. And since my athletic ability and my brothers and my sisters, Monterey Park had to be before their time with recreation. They had a gym open all night. They had a swimming pool. They had Little League, Pop Warner, everything you can think of. I lived at the park, you know, played baseball, got my lifeguard license and stuff. I did everything in athletics, which helped me a lot. A little bit of prejudice, like, hey, you Mexicans, go play over there. Or, hey, I remember when you're white, you got a nice tan. No, I'm a Mexican, man. I'm like this all year round. Little things like that, but my athleticism helped me out a lot.
Sure.
Well, as I went to the university, I went to East LA, then to Cal State LA because of that rush that my teacher gave me, Miss Moreno. You know, I was confident. I still stuttered, but I was confident. And then I said, you know what? Because when you're discriminated against, it stays with you deep, deep. Okay, that's the advantage I had as a teacher. I knew what pain and suffering and being discriminated was. I mean, this is why if you plan to go into the profession, you better love your students or don't go at all, because you know what? You have to nurture kids. And me, I was a teacher that I didn't want college prep kids. I didn't want the athletes. I didn't want the prize kids or the honor. I wanted my people, including gang members. I wanted to teach my gente because there's not too many of me coming through the mill, you know. I'm going to put my time where all the other teachers, I don't want that standard class or basic. You give it to me, man. I want to teach the people, you know. I didn't say it like that, but in my heart it was there. What really changed my life also, other than that teacher, Miss Moreno, is I used to play basketball a lot. Every night I was basketball, you know, as I was going to East LA College and a high school. And there was these Chicano teachers I used to play with. They used to rough me up. There was two. They taught at El Rancho High School. But they liked me. You know, I used to play ball with them at night at the gym. And they used to say, hey, Terrazas, you going to college? I go, yeah, man, I'm going to college. You go, what are you going to be, man? I go, recreation. The reason why I took recreation, because I wasn't confident to take academics. Because I always wanted to, hey, man, I'm not that smart, so I better go out the easy way. So I was good at recreation. So I took the major recreation education because I wanted to get through, just get my degree. I didn't know I was going to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. And then they said, hey, if you're in the university, why don't you be a teacher like us, homeboy? And I go, oh, teacher, me a teacher? The teacher said I was a dummy. I couldn't do nothing. And they go, hey, man, there's some teachers that are bad, some teachers are good, but I'm going to tell you something. You're a good athlete, you can be a coach. A light went on. And you get 2 weeks off for Christmas, another light went on. And you get a couple of weeks off for Easter, another light went on. And you get out at 3 o'clock every day. But, you know, that just motivated me because I was young and stupid, you know, a young teenager trying to get through. And I go, that's a good idea. But still, it was in the back of my head. I still went to Cal State LA, majored in recreation education, got my bachelor's, you know, graduated from stage and everything. Then it was getting, you know, just when it was beginning to be close to graduation, there was one class It was called, it was a literature class, and I had to write a thesis on what was it, The American Way of Death, or I forgot the name of the book. It was by Mailer, something about death, you don't know? Well, anyway, I had to write a thesis on that, and I didn't know what to do, and I needed that class, man. So I was desperate, so I went and seen the teacher. I go, hey, man, help me out, man. I need this class to graduate. So he helped me. He was a good dude. Helped me, and as I was walking to his office, there was a poster, and the poster was red and gold, and it had USC.
So you were at East LA College, or you were at
No,
Cal
I was
State
already
LA?
at Cal State.
And Cal State had a poster for USC?
Yeah, well, as I was walking in the hall, they had a poster, we need teachers, future teachers with no experience to make change, you know. And what the hell? And I was a USC fan. I love football. And Mike Garrett went to, you know who Mike Garrett is? He was a Heisman Trophy winner from Roosevelt High School. He went to USC and he won the Heisman. This was in the 60s, the late 60s. He was the greatest. And I had a rich friend that used to take me to the games. So SC sounds, you know, but that was distant. Me going to a major university like that. So anyway, it says SC, meetings. Then I told my mother about it. My mother said, try it, Mijo, try it. You have nothing to lose. You're going to graduate. Maybe you can go to that program. It was a master's. It was an intern master's program. And so, and my mother, man, she's good. She packed me up a lunch and put me in my Volkswagen, and she sent me to Camarillo State Hospital. That's where the interviews for the West Coast region of the United States. I had no idea it was going to be hundreds and thousands of people there interviewing for USC for Teacher Corps Rural Migrant Program to specialize in bilingual, bicultural education and not really make change. They just talked about that. You know, I mean, I went further than that, but you know, it was interesting, you know, and so I went to the interview. It was about a week. It was interview. They needed 6 teams of 6, and it was Somis, Santa Paula, Ventura, Moore Park. Was it Fillmore? I don't remember. But they were different districts, and their administrators came to interview us because we were going to start their bilingual programs and their ESL program. It was just happening, you know. It was bilingual education was just started in 1970, 71. That's when I was at Briggs Elementary School. Well, before that, the interviews were happening. So I went to the interviews, and, you know, they asked me questions about, you know, school, different situation, you know, what high school did you go to? How were you academically? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Well, anyway, after all the interviews, no one called me back. So my interviews were in the early 70s. SC and the United Civil Rights Department needed 36 interns for 6 different schools, 6 members each. And there was very little Mexicans. They couldn't find the Mexicans. I wonder why. You know, shoot, they weren't teaching our people. So there was, and I was the true blue guy from East LA, the one they wanted. Well, anyway, I interviewed, and they said there was hundreds and hundreds of people interviewed from the West Coast region of the United States. And, you know, with my luck, I says, no way. So I went home, and my mother says, that's all right, mijo. You know, you can try for another program, or, you know. And this program was from my master's degree. Well, anyway, I went home, and then a week later, I got a call. This is USC. This is head of the Department of Education. My name is Pat Cabrera. I'm head of Teacher Corps. We want you to come back for another interview because there's this one school that needs one more, and we like you. In other words, you're a real Mexican East LA boy, even though you can't speak Spanish. You're a pocho. So I went back, and then all the university people coached me. Says, look, just be good, answer these questions, and like that, and just be natural, do this, because they wanted me in the program. And so I went at the campus of USC, and there was a school called Briggs Elementary, which is the most racist school later on. Mm-hmm. And there was this Ozark principal, you know, with a big limp. His name was Mr. Smith, but he was a jock. He was a coach. And he says, they asked me some questions, some about marijuana in a bathroom, student this, student that. And then he says, I understand you're a coach. And I go, yeah, I was an athlete in school. I did this and this and that. And he says, okay, all right. And he says, we're done with the interview. And then I went home, The day next, congratulations, you just got accepted to USC. I couldn't believe it. A major university where all my football heroes went. And then the director of the no, this is how I found out. Let me take it back. I was at the boys club. I was teaching swimming to these little Latina little kids in the swimming pool. And it was in the evening, it was dark, the swimming pool had its lights, and some guy pounds on the gym door, and he had a cigar. He was a short guy. His name was Frank Anderete, and he was on the board of education at LA School, a big-time activist, and he was one of the directors for this program. And he says, "Are you Guillermo Terrazas?" I go, "Yeah." "Get out of that pool, homeboy. You just got accepted to USC. Go give your executive director a 10-day notice because you're going to SC, homeboy." I go, "What the hell, man?" I couldn't believe it. And he took me to the director. His name was Knudsen. And he says, "This homeboy's going to USC. He's gonna make history, man." And I'll never forget that moment, man. It was crazy. Well, anyway, I got selected at this Briggs, and probably because I was a jock and the principal was a jock, I probably didn't get it for bilingual education, or I probably got it to be a coach. But that's the way the system works in the white world. Hell with that Mexican shit. He's a coach. Let's get him. I ain't no dummy. So anyway, I went, and most of the kids came from the Limonera Ranch. You familiar with the Limonera? It's a big lemon company, one of the biggest agricultural lemon orange companies in the world. And so we all came in a bus down here, and they showed us all elementary. They took us to the Limonera, and I go, "Man, this is where I'm going to live." And we had to find our own housing, And I'm a hustler. So I went early before we started the program, and there was a guy named El Guilin. He was the director, the manager of the whole ranch. He happened to be a Mexican. And he's still he's not an activist, but he's a deacon in the church in Santa Paula. He's still alive. Well, anyway, I had a meeting with him. I go, "Look, I'm a teacher. I know we heard you guys were coming." And his kids were in the elementary school. And I go, yeah. I said, "Well, I'll help you out." And he gave me a big house in a labor camp, a 2-story house. And I go, "Hey, could the rest of my team members live here?" Only 3 guys moved in with me. And that's when it started, Then first day at school, ooh, man, you can see that it was going to be trouble. Puro gabachos, boy. And they were mean, There were some teachers that were okay. But Mr. Smith, he loved me because I was a coach. So anyway, SC was going to train us in bilingual, bicultural education, how to get it in the system. And this whole program started by, like I said before, the university and the civil rights department, because the farm workers' children were getting discriminated against. They were dropping out of school and everything. And, they weren't getting the right education. Why? Because they didn't have no bilingual education. Half the school spoke Spanish. They didn't have anyone. I couldn't speak Spanish, but I can teach ESL, and I was aware of the problem, But they made us out of teaching English as a second language specialist. And I had the best in the United States, the teachers. And I was a good ESL teacher. And at the same time, I can understand a little Spanish, but not that much. That's where I had my problems. And all the directors of Teacher Corps knew, but they said, "But we want you, man, because you're a cholo from East LA." and so I stayed, and it was tough. And my master's thesis was an analysis of the dropout rate from 8th grade Briggs School to Santa Paula High School, 9th grade. 80% of the kids from the ranch didn't go to high school. They put them in the packing houses.
80%.
Yeah, and that study helped the State Department to bring a bilingual program to that school, and helped all of Ventura County accept bilingual education. And so, there was a lot of people that helped on the team. El Guilin helped, and Teacher Corps helped, and the guy named Cliff Rodriguez, Cliff, he was the bilingual director of the county. He was a good dude. He was a güero, but he was a Mexicano, and he helped a lot. And then one of my team members who became the state director of bilingual education, his name was David Dulson. He was my roommate. He was a good dude. He was married. He's a little older than me, but he helped me a lot with my master's and my thesis, and he helped me a lot. We went to the University of Santa Barbara together to get extra units, and he helped me a lot. Well, anyway, I was in Briggs School then. I met my wife there. a beautiful lemon queen. And I got married in teacher corps shoes because she was lived in the labor camp in a little hut with her 11 brothers and sisters, and I swept her off her feet and we got married, had a big old wedding, and that was cool. Then I was after 2 years I was ready to go out in the world. I taught ESL to the farm workers and their children and everything else, and I was ready to go out in the world. So I put in applications around Ventura County and Oxnard Union High School District because I wanted to be a coach. That's why I went to high school. And of all the 36 members, I'm the only one that went to a high school because I wanted to be a coach. And, do what I got to do. But I didn't know enough to make change and organize, and get involved in civil rights. And so I went to interviews and they treated me like shit, at the interviews. You're a Mexican, we have to interview you because of affirmative action. And then I went to Santa Paula High School. The superintendent's named Shudo. He told me to shut up because he was listening to the World Series. And just like that, man, shut up. Mickey Mantle's up. Wait a minute, and he listened to I interviewed with Rio Mesa. His name was Michelson. He didn't make me feel too hot. Nah, we're all right. Went to Wainimi, Seidler. He didn't make me feel good. He was crazy. Went to Steve Stocks. Later became a board member. He said, we just got to take you. But you know what? You're all right. You're a coach, huh? That helped me. Being an athlete helped me, man. Yeah. But, they didn't know what was in store for them when they got me, Well, anyway, Steve Stock, we got to take you. We'd have no choice. I go, you're going to teach English. I go, hey, man, I'm from East LA. I don't teach English. What do you mean? You're going where we want you to go. You're going to go English 9 and English 12, and you're going to teach freshman football. You're going to be a coach. And, I just happened to get a job, That's most money I was ever going to make. Well, anyway, he treated me like hell. Then I became a teacher. I was in the classroom. And the teachers, I was like maybe the first real Chicano ever to be in this school, if not the whole damn district. And I had a tough time. I had a tough time with the teachers. They wouldn't lend me materials. They were trying to figure me out, like if I was a token, you're just here because of civil rights. I had to fight that too. But then, as a coach, which I love, that was home for me. That was nice. And then I got a lot of recognition being a coach because I was a natural motivator because I was a jock. I knew how to motivate kids. And then all the coaches loved me and I loved them. We used to party, and then slowly I got accepted as a teacher, by all the rest of the faculty. But then when it got to accepting bilingual education and the influx of Mexicanos coming into Oxnard, the teachers were freaking out. They were scared for their jobs. Why do we got to teach them? Or why do we got to get these Mexican teachers to teach them English or ESL? There was a big resistance against bilingual education, which happened all over the world, They don't, they're afraid of change. And so the first 10 years I had to fight because I was teaching ESL. They wanted to throw us out. They didn't accept us, and they fought bilingual education in ESL. Then after the middle of my career in the early 90s, we got a lot of resistance from the faculty. And the principal and the superintendent said, hey, man, you got to train your faculty because we're getting millions from the state to teach bilingual because we got a lot of Mexicanos now. And on the south side, Channel Islands High School, shit, we had 95, in the early days when I was there, CI was maybe 30%. In 10, 15 years, we were 90% Mexicanos. Half of them, 75% speaking Spanish, all Mexicanos. Because how else are they going to pick their fruit, And there was a big influx. And then the district gave principals pressure. You got to do bilingual education. So with my experience and what I knew in ESL and my master's in bilingual education, we would have in-service meetings and we were having, and we developed the first bilingual department in the district with lots of resistance. But before that, we would have arguments with teachers, with administrators, even superintendents, and I would have to explain to them everything what I knew about language acquisition, biculturalism. It gives them power. Bilingual education, bicultural education is the best thing that can happen to the school, man. Everybody gets along. But still, a lot of resistance. I had fights with superintendents and everything. Then, as a teacher, I've always been vocal, and I've always been just natural, non-traditional. ADHD, Lamborghini mind. I used to see Oprah. I used to see like the Phil Donahue show. Remember him? How they had panels. So to make my class interesting, we used to talk about topics, and I've always been like that. I was a sociology major. Well, let's talk about this, and I would have student panels, But I was scratching the surface then, not to my ESL students because they could. It was mainly for my seniors in senior English class, English 12. Well, anyway, the principal in the district said each bilingual department in service to faculty. And I go, oh man, come on. These guys hate us, And so I was teaching ESL, and through these panels that I was doing naturally, I had some powerful students, It would give them and I didn't know nothing about voice or about dialogue then. And some of the other teachers and were saying, well, what are we going to do? And I go, what we're going to do? We're going to get some of my students that I've been working with, and we're going to have a panel, and they're going to tell the teachers how they feel and the way they're treated in the school. And they said, it's a good idea. But, I had to push it a lot because, a lot of teachers, they don't have the huevos, they don't have the ovaries to take risks like that. But, I was desperate. And later on, I'm going to tell you what gave me the guts to do what I did after I finished this. Well, anyway, we had the in-service. It was in the library. About 120 teachers were there. And
from the whole district?
No, just from our school. And so some of the bilingual teachers talked about bilingual education. And so my presentation, I want to introduce some students to show you guys how they really feel about what's happening in the school, that we need bilingual education and bicultural education, And then I says, and I have a panel here. They're going to tell you about it. But like a miracle happened, man. Something happened. God, we always say with my classes and my group, I'll tell you about later. We always call it like the fifth dimension. Something's going to happen out of the clear blue sky. Well, then the students started talking. I don't know nothing about my history. You don't teach the history. Actually, you teach us white history. And Mrs. Beth, she's a racist. She called me a beaner. And Mrs. Smith asked me for my green card. They were telling truth. Mm-hmm. And the teachers were getting, how dare you call me a racist? And some teachers got up and they said, let him speak, let him speak. We almost had a riot in that thing right there, okay? And there was some teachers, let them speak, man. There's some good teachers, very low percentage of, and my students kicked their ass that they weren't meeting their needs. We need bilingual. You don't speak Spanish. You don't care about our family. Don't you know about our, some students were crying. Don't you know where I come from? Don't you know that my parents work their ass off and we live in the projects or in the labor camps? And we don't know nothing about our history. We don't understand you. We can't relate. It was good. It was good. Well, anyway, in the in-service, we invited community, and we invited some teachers from bilingual education, CABE and NABE, some national teachers, to help us. And then after our presentation, teachers were angry walking out. Went up to the principal, how could you have Terrazas do this to us? How could you embarrass us with these kids? But I had a good, strong principal, and I coached my principal. I'll tell you about him later. But anyway, Dr. Juanita Sanchez, she's a legend here. She's a Chicana doctorate from the Colonial. Little small, she was a nun. She was a principal at one elementary. You remember her? She just died.
Was she the first PhD at a Colonial?
Yeah, I know there was another one that I worked with. His name was Dr. Cerros. I'll tell you about him later, too. But, well, anyway, she had a little brown book, and she came up to me with smiles, and she almost hugged me and kissed me. She said, you know what you were doing, Terrazas? And another teacher that was more experienced with Paulo Freire, she was a board member for CABE and everything. She knew about Paulo Freire and knew about, his techniques. And she says, Terrazas, you know what you did right now? And I go, what? You gave students a voice, you know. You raised their consciousness, you know. And I go, here, take this book. And then a week later, we got invited to an institute with all these authors. With all these authors here. They were gurus. They were gurus from Paulo Freire. They were already doing critical consciousness. They were already practicing his philosophies. They were his followers. Now, let me tell you, before I do this, let me tell you about Paulo Freire. Paulo Freire is a philosopher that I discovered after that presentation. And I read that book, and it just blew my mind, his philosophy. I mean, like the first 3 chapters, it talked about history of the oppressed, and it talked about his story, how he was privileged, Paulo Freire. He was from a well-to-do family, but as a teacher, he was teaching the peasants and the oppressed people of Brazil. And through his teachings, he would teach illiterates. He gave a problem-posing curriculum. Why are you poor? Why are you treated like slaves? How come you don't have money? How come you live in this lousy housing? How come they treat you like slaves? He would put that in his curriculum to learn a language, to read, to write. You know, and his saying was, the word, your written word is the world. Your voice is everything, you know. So I learned this paradigm. There's arrows, but this is his paradigm, and this is my class. It's something that goes backwards, forwards, up and down, no matter what comes first. But the way I see it is reflection comes first, because you learn about your history, about what's happening to you yourself. Then you talk about it in a group, because once you voice, you have similarities, you know, and hey, my mother and father are poor. Mine are too. Hey, mine are too. Where do you live? In the barrio. I live in the barrio too. Why do they treat us like this? You know, just to start a little dialogue, you know. Then you reflect on that. Man, you're right. You know, they treat us like shit. These teachers are racist. You know, they think we're all stupid. And then you take action. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And then we were invited to this institute, reclaiming our voices. The title of it, for culture and transforming culture and linguistic democracy, or transforming education for culture and linguistics democracy. And all the heavies were there. Kathy Walsh, this guy's name, Jim Cummins, he's the guru of language. He has language schools in Canada. And this is called Negotiating Identities. I can't see. Go ahead and read it.
Education for Empowerment in a Diverse Society.
And this right here is one of my students' quote, which I was surprised to see. Read that, because I don't have my glasses.
Our classroom was full of human knowledge. We had a teacher who believed in us. He didn't hide our power. He advertised it.
So in this book are the top programs in the United States, and we're in it. You know, we're in it. This was a book put out by CABE, Reclaiming Our Voices, Bilingual Education, Critical Pedagogy, and Praxis. This are all the followers and the curriculums and the achievements of different authors, and they put one together. And I'm in it. I have a whole chapter, and 2 of my students are in it to say what happened to us. We have a chapter in this book called, this is Kathy Walsh. She's at the University of Michigan, I think. And Education Reform and Social Change, Multicultural Voices, Struggles and Visions. It's a heavy title, huh? Mm-hmm. These are heavy titles. And then this doctor, what's his name? Bill, I forget his name, but he did an article, and he cites us. He's at California State University at Northridge, and he came and observed my class and filmed my class. So did these other authors. So, you know, we were getting a lot of international recognition, and civil rights leaders from all over, even New York City. They had one of my students speak to a whole auditorium of political activists. We had dialogues with Alma Flor. You know who she is? Alma Florado worked with Paulo Freire during the revolution when he was in trouble. She's a powerful person. She's written a lot of books, you know, raising the consciousness of young kids. Well, anyway, you know, we were doing something that was crazy. Well, when we gave the presentation to this institute, Transforming Education for Cultural and Linguistic Democracy, my students spoke out. And there was all these authors there, all the critical pedagogy, Paulo Freire's followers, big shots from CABE, the board, because this was new. This was going to change education because his philosophy was right on. You know, have a problem posing education, raise the consciousness of young people, develop their voice, dialogue, reflection, taking action. The Chicano community has to take actions against the schools. We have to speak out. We have to expose the inequities of the schools and the community. Well, you know, we were a big success. They were shocked. There was doctorate programs there, and their leaders, and one famous person, her name was Antonio Darder. Powerful. She speaks all over the world. She was a follower of Paulo Freire. She took me outside and says, hey, man, and we were causing friction with the PhD students and the authors because we were ahead of our time. They said, you know, and so she came out. She's a powerful lady. She has several books out. Antonio Darder, that's her name. I think she's at the University of Chicago right now. She was going to have us write in one of her books, but then the agenda changed in the United States. George Bush became president. Bilingual education was losing their power, and we didn't fight. That's another story. Well, anyway, Darder came out and talked to me. She says, you know what you just did, Terrazas? And your students, you kicked some ass. Your curriculum and your students were doing better than doctorate students with Paulo Freire's material. That's why they're all pissed off at you. And I go, what? I didn't know. You know, I was a rookie in this. But after I read his book, I said, you know, I was telling this to my students, making my students talking about chapters in my classroom, and I was using it to experiment. What's this? Plus, my mindset changed because before I was introduced to Paulo Freire, I was ready to get out of education. I didn't want nothing to do with it. I went and got my contractor's license because I was disillusioned with education. Too freaking racist. They treat the Mexicans like shit. The gang members, no tolerance. They just throw them out. All the homies worked in agriculture. And across the street, their parents were picking lemons and tomatoes. On the school side, in the agricultural class, they were picking lemon with their T-shirts. You know, they're homies. I go, God damn! All the Mexicanos that had problems speaking English would go in special ed classes, and the administration it was like a police. It was like a prison to the Mexicanos. Like, I got to get out of here, man. So I went and got my contractor's license. I had brother-in-laws that taught me how to build and do construction, and at the same time after that, a teacher gave me the idea of buying real estate and fixing up houses because of my knowledge in construction. So I started buying real estate.
So this was around 92, 93?
Just in the middle of this. In the middle, I was doing construction. I didn't make enough as a teacher. And just how I was doing this. Well, anyway, another miracle, another fifth dimension, I was making money in real estate. You know, I was there at the right time. So I said to myself, you know what? After reading Paulo Freire and making some money, I don't care if I lose this job. I'm going to go for it, man. So I had the backing of the money I was making in construction and real estate. And I had the knowledge to put it together with the research of Paulo Freire and this paradigm. Mm-hmm. So I says, I'm going to do something about it. So I developed a curriculum that would empower my students and raise their consciousness. Paulo Freire called us the cultura of silencios. We are the culture of silence. And then I thought about me. Boom, just like that. I was silent. I was terrified to speak in front of people. And with my stuttering, worse. So I became a big advocate in finding their voice. And I developed a curriculum that would go through this. And I called it Collective Research Investigations. And guess where I found this? I found this at a Cabe State Conference with a kindergarten teacher. He had this outline. What it is, it's an investigation, and I'll show you some examples real soon. But it does all of Bloom's taxonomy, which people didn't know. I mean, people would say this is an academic. Okay, what it does, it's a problem-posing investigation. Just like when I was introduced with Miss Moreno about gangs, because I knew about it. Okay, what I did is I would give students butcher paper and markers, and I'd put them in groups. And then I would tell them to pick a problem. You know, I had to coach them, I had to coach them. And I would put them in groups of 5. And they would pick up something something that's happened to you, something that's real life, that you know a little bit, but you want to know more. So what are students going to pick? Drugs, marijuana.
The one that always comes up, right?
Abortion, homosexuality, gays and lesbians, homelessness, all the problems of the world. They were interested. But I also, they didn't know, but I was coaching them. I was coaching them, because this is hard for high school kids to go this high, especially using the highest form of learning, which is knowledge, comprehension, analysis, application. And that's what they're doing now. Okay, I was way before my time with this evaluation, because all the state requirements now in schools are this. And I was doing this, 30 years ago. But I stole it from a kindergarten teacher. He never knew. But anyway, it's define the problem. Okay, identify the problem. Personalize the problem. I would save this till the end. Discussing the problem. Taking action. Discussing the action. How are you going to make change? And then right here it says, applying the knowledge you've learned. So it isn't just make a report. It's going in deep. Okay, what I did is I went and made a stage in my classroom, about 2 feet high, and I got a PA system. Because I said, when you hear your voice on the microphone, it's going to make you louder and more powerful. At the same time, I had to teach risk. I had to have these students to trust me. So what I did, the first day of school with new students, I would do 2 weeks of icebreakers, learning their names, making it like a football team. Family, togetherness. And then I would start, what's your name, with their voice. And and I would tell them, do you know what they call us? We're the cultura of silencios. Teachers know us for not saying nothing. That's why they don't ask questions to you. I would put little things in them that make them kind of angry. They think you're stupid because you don't have a voice. And so I would do little by little, and we would go in circles to introduce each other, your hobbies, where you're from, talk about your parents. So, this took months. This took months before I brought this out. So now they were learning how to risk, to take chances, what the system was doing to them. And I used to, and I was open. I told them my story. I told them about my stuttering. I told them about my discrimination. And they would, and you know what? I told them it was hard for them because, students are like onions, especially oppressed children. They're like onions, like me, like you. We were onions. I had to peel off these layers. And through icebreakers, speaking, telling stories, talking about their history, make them feel good who they are, you're taking the onion peels of racist teachers, of failure, of all the red marks in their papers, taking away their voices, treating them like shit, calls. You know, you have to take the layers of failures that our students have had. And once you take off their layer, they're naked. They don't know what to do. Then you get into this. And so you get butcher paper is you put it on butcher paper. And the reason why I have groups, because you can protect each other when you go up there. So as they go up there, they have to split. They got to use a pointer or whatever they want. And then they would read the report. Drugs, the definition, they would have the right questions. Why do people take drugs? How does families feel about drugs? How do you feel about it? They had to write 10 questions. Then they compare and contrast. I would teach them that, cause and effect. Then they would go in through other things, you know, where do you get help? Really deep, high-level learning things. And they'd put it on butcher paper, but then they would have to say it to their class after they put it on paper. And, you know, it had to be legible. It had to be neat. They had to practice. Some students wouldn't do that, but, you know, that's okay. Long as they're you know, because my main point is this. My main thing is voice and dialogue. If I can get my students to voice and dialogue about their world, that's more powerful than anything, because we are the culture of silence, and they want us to be like that. Then they would make reports on domestication of education, traditional education versus emancipatory education, abortion, rape, date rape, smoking, diabetes. They would talk about everything. Okay, at the end, which is the essence, at the end, when you personalize the problem, you have to say a personal experience in your life. And that's when it would explode. Students would get up there and says, yeah, my brother almost OD'd. And it scared the hell out of the family. And then, hey, my brother almost OD'd too. And man, learning-wise, the students are in the tip of their chairs like this, just hungry for that knowledge. And that's real learning right there. That's this. That's the high-level learning. And wanting to speak out. All the hands would go up. Hey, that happened to my family too. This happened. You know, I had a brother that went to jail. Boom, boom. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The dialogues were the main source of that would raise their consciousness. You know, culturally, that's what they got to do here too. How does it affect the world culturally, economically? How does drugs affect with the family? How does, you know, what about politically? What are the politicians doing about it? You know, how do we get and then the last one, how do you get the information out to make change? Make little pamphlets, pass it out on campus. AAA meets here, drug and alcohol classes meet here, you know. Some of them, and you know, this was hard for them, but some of them would do that. Or we would invite other classes to come and listen to the dialogues. So my class was always packed. And the administrator coming in, what are you doing, Terrazas? You know, and but you know, that was exciting for me. Once my students reached not only you know, share, but actually voice, share experiences, and take action in the world. They even took action on themselves. Once you get the point of confidence, and you raise your consciousness of why are you a Mexicano working and your parents are in poverty? Why does your brother smoke weed, man? What's happening here? And you know, this is education at the highest. This is what they only do to the white students at Westlake High School. They do high-level shit like this, project, but they don't do it to the Mexicanos. In fact, all those newspaper articles are achievements that we did in bilingual education, bringing multicultural education to the core curriculum. All the activism my students did, I got 15 years of evidence what it did in the paper. But when my students raised their voice about shitty teachers, about you're not teaching about my culture. There's no literature books on me, myself, and I. The district and not the board, but the district and other teachers say, your students are radical. You're making radical students subversive. They're going to overthrow the government. They were putting that in the newspaper too. But at Camarillo High School, when honor students go against the system, a bad teacher, or they don't have the right teachers or the not right books, oh, that's why they're honor students. They're very intelligent. They're smart. But my students, they're radicals. They're subversive. They're going to overthrow the school system. You know what I'm saying? You want to say something?
I was just thinking, like, doing research on you and seeing the articles that I was able to see. The LA Times was basically calling you a miracle worker. You were changing the lives of students in a way that seemed miraculous. And you did going into construction, and how you almost just quit teaching.
I was finding a way to get out.
Yeah.
Because it was too racist. I couldn't handle it.
And so during this time that they were trying to maybe suppress you a little bit and call you a radical.
I got a lot of hate mail. There's one in there you'll see where there's a podium and a stage, and then a big fist goes up like that. Says that's Terrazas. He's ruining the educational system. I got a lot of threats.
It's fascinating to me because, like, all the stuff that you're talking about, I may not call, when I'm in the classroom and I'm teaching, I don't call it critical pedagogy, but this is all the stuff that I do intuitively.
Good.
And when I'm working with my students, it wasn't because I studied anyone. It's just, I've been part of the education system for almost, well, let's say 40 plus years now. In one way, shape,
You look
or
too
form.
young to do it 40
I know,
years.
I know. It's because I color my hair at the beginning of the semester. That way, when I'm gray by the end of the semester, I tell my students, this is because of you. Like, all this gray, every time you didn't turn in homework, every time you didn't show up on time to class, I got another gray hair. So that's how I do it. But definitely, I think that what you're doing, or what you did, is, especially this part here, the dialogue, the reflection,
Powerful,
the taking
huh?
action, the voice. As a poet, and when I teach poetry, this is what I'm teaching them as well.
Put it up, man.
You know,
Put it up.
That's it. So it's fascinating to hear all of.
But the real resistance came about the same time, a little later. Want to hear that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. My students started to question why they've been treated, why other teachers treat them like that, why they don't have multicultural books, Chicano literature, black literature, any kind of literature that tells about Filipinos or whatever. Because I also had Filipinos and Vietnamese kids in my class, and we would talk about their culture and play songs and stuff like that. Well, anyway, the students wanted to take action. And we used to call it a bilingual, okay, with a regular open house in a high school. Have you ever been to a high school open house? Mm-hmm. Nobody shows up.
Right.
Nobody shows up. The classrooms are empty, and you see the shadow of the teacher with the lights in the back, and he's all alone. He says, where are my kids? And then they look down at my classroom. It was packed. There was 200 people outside wanting to get in my class because my students were performing, and they were making speeches. And they were talking about the system, how racist it is. Mm-hmm. You know, I let them do what they want, as long as you don't, keep it cool. If it's the truth, they can't do nothing about the truth. Well, anyway, my principal, who was supporting me because of bilingual education, the district would say, we got to make change. Well, we were getting recognition internationally. They were writing the school and say, this Terrazas is something else. He's cutting edge stuff. And then he says, Terrazas, you got to do it out in the quad. No, the cafeteria. And then we overflowed the cafeteria. Then they said, you got to do the gym. And that's when the white teachers really got offended. Because their classes were empty. And of all people, man, Mexicanos showing up to open house, that's unheard of. Mm-hmm. Man, the Mexicanos came from the fields, man, with their boots on to see their kids perform. Their shirts red with strawberry, their hands, they still had their muddy gloves on to see their kids perform. The secret was is it just like a kindergarten class? You know how the parents show? But as the student gets older, they never come anymore because the teenagers turn out to be assholes, right? They don't come. Hell with them, man. So anyway, it's funny, but it's true. So but the students gave me the idea, said, Terrazas, let us perform. Because they were getting critical. Their consciousness was rising. We got to make change. We got to tell the world what's happening in these schools. And that was, I was scared of my students. My students were teaching me something. And that's the way it should be. Paulo Freire's paradigm is, hey, education isn't one way. The teacher talks, the students learn. One way learning, no. Two way, sometimes, A, B, keep going back and forth. Dialogue, make something happen in your classroom. So we started to read poetry. We started to do little skits. We started to do skits on racism. We started doing ballet folklorico. And another thing is we brought ballet folklorico to our curriculum with Bob Vias and some of our teachers. Well, anyway, all our art from our class of Zapata, of the Aztec calendar. I would get a lot of Mexican art from books, from
Diego or Frida?
Diego Rivera. Okay, he had a lot of little pictures, beautiful knickknacks or designs, the cross, the eagle, the sombrero, the huarachis with tequila, all that stuff. There was other projects that we did. Everything's with butcher paper, right? Because they couldn't. And I always told them, we gotta write. You gotta use these pictures. We gotta do it. They love to do Mexican art, and there's millions of art. They used to even get their own. And some of these ethnographs are beautiful. I used to do a lot of that too, which I missed. Their morals and their values. Talk about their family, introduce their families, stuff like that. Well, anyway, what brought all the people in my classroom, in the cafeteria, and then the gym was their stuff. And then we had one secret weapon. You're gonna laugh at this one, Fernando.
I can't wait.
How could we reach the other bilingual classes to come and bring their parents? Okay.
Food.
No.
Oh, what?
Almost.
Are you kidding me? Okay,
Almost.
Tell me.
Okay. I don't know how I got this idea, but maybe with the ballet folklorico, but one of my students says, Terrazas, teach them the dance, la raspa.
There you go.
Taran, taran, taran. And it's an easy dance, right?
Sure.
But first I'd teach my class. And they were, high school students dancing la raspa,
Right.
but they feel so good and not scared of nothing. They don't care what anyone says. I've raised their consciousness. These are powerful human beings. That's what you call, transforming, taking off the onion, making good, strong human beings. And that's what scared the shit out of the district and the system. They weren't afraid to talk to the principal or their teacher. You're a freaking racist. This is my school, not yours. You work for me and my mother. Ooh, that pissed off teachers. I didn't tell them. It didn't come from me. I just told them the history. Well, anyway, at the gym, La Raspa. I would teach my kids La Raspa. We'd get in circles and do taran, with a heel to toe and go around. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, we learned that. Then I had my students go out to the bilingual classes and teach them that. So, what are you doing? Everybody laugh at us. But there's some students that kick it off, more powerful. And you walk in there, any class, there's some leaders. They got up and they were doing La Raspa with my students. And then everybody started dancing. We go to another class. We went to maybe about 10 bilingual classes. And I go, look, we're going to do a bilingual open house, and we got to show the people who we are, man. And so they started each class started making, then we would go into the gym. I got a picture over there of all the parents. We filled up the gym, Fernando. And all the Gabacho teachers, their classroom empty. They wouldn't even go to class. They would come to ours. And they really got threatened. So, Fernando, they're in there displaying their culture, and it's beautiful. We have our art up there. We have our ethnographies. There you go. That's one side of the gym. Wow. Mexicanos, okay? And then during the rally, Okay, students, go get your parents to dance La Raspa. The whole gym floor is their parents and their children and their kids, dirty from the fields. And man, this freaked out the Gabacho teachers. You're a nationalist. You're taking something away from America. We're just celebrating our culture, man. Stop the hate, homeboy. And then the worst thing is we did the Mexican national anthem. They're all Mexicanos from Mexico.
Okay.
And we started singing national. I had board members in there, man.
Yeah.
You know, we had all the teachers scared, but we were raising the consciousness of the school, if not the city, because it grew. Well, anyway, they were singing the national anthem, the Mexican national, and the Star Spangled Banner. I was on the shit list in that school, man. But I had the administration because I was cutting edge, GABE, bilingual education, ESL, you know, all these Senate bill, whatever, that you got to do it. Law versus Nichols. And the administrators knew it, but the teachers didn't because they were racist, you know. Not all of them, but most of them. Well, anyway, so they're doing La Raspa, right? And they're dancing, you know. And when they did the national anthem, the teachers started walking out. How dare you do this in America? Like they always do, right? Yeah. And then, to make things worse, after the Star Spangled Banner, the what do you call it? Banda de Guerra comes in. You know what that is? That's the Mexican Revolutionary March. It's all drums and these kids are dressed up in their uniforms like military, and they go bum 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 bum. And they walk in, and all the crowd stands up because that's history. That's culture. You know, that's culture. They all stand up, you know, because to honor the Mexican government. And they all stands up. And man, I can feel in my bones, they're gonna hate me after this one, man. But you know, after these celebrations, you know, I had no one to cry on. You know, I was by myself, and there was a couple of teachers in the bilingual program that would accept me, but out of 120 teachers, the administration would always back me. Some were assholes, but and the board knew what I was on the wrong track. That's why I would bring the board to sit out in the front, because all the teachers, but there was no teachers there. There was no gabachos. The school's goddamn 95% Mexicano. Don't you get it, teachers? Well, you know, after they finally got it, but anyway. After I would do this, talking about crying, at the end of the show, you know, congratulations. The students knew they were making history. It would just overflow with pride, Mexican pride, in a setting that's white and oppressive, you know. And then they started calling me nationalist. But then I would go in my car, and I'd yell and scream, yeah, you know. Because as long as I knew I had the board and I have that power structure, and I had the community too, because I was getting in a lot of trouble. I had El Concilio. Oh, I got to tell you about the El Concilio award. But that's next when I got in trouble. That's the how they destroyed me. Well, anyway, I would go in my car on the way home, and I sometimes I had to stop at a liquor store and give me a beer. And I go, God, thank you. God. But I was getting in so much trouble that my family was turning against me. You're gonna get us all killed and in trouble, because we were getting hate mail by then. Teachers wanted me out. I was getting newspaper. There's a teacher over there that's starting a revolution that's gonna hurt the educational system. And you know, that was stupid. And no one could argue about bilingual education, language acquisition, biculturalism like me. Superintendents would drill me. Teachers, faculty meetings, no one could outdo me at the meaning of bilingual bicultural education. Okay, no one knows what I know. And plus, you know, we're self-made from the barrio. We know about it, you know. Well, anyway, I would celebrate by myself. That's the crying from your thing, you know. And I would feel so proud. But then when my family started to question me, I would pray to God, and I go, God, should I stop doing this? Should I stop doing this and concentrate on my family? Because I'm losing them. Guess what God would say, Fernando? He would say, they love you. You keep doing what you're doing for the people. You're doing the right thing, Terrazas. Because you're doing it with your heart and the love. and you're empowering hundreds and thousands of parents and kids. Keep doing what you're doing. And so I did. I want to cry a little bit right now because after this, I get in a lot of trouble.
So losing the support of your family must create an immense amount of doubt.
They didn't turn it. They just said that, and I would think about it. But they supported me because they seen what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would invite them. They would see what I was doing.
So at any point during this time, did you start feeling that imposter syndrome, that fear, that?
Fernando, everything I'd done in that institution that violently treats our culture, you know, it was fearful. I was scared. I'll tell you right now, I was scared everything I did, from the curriculum to the protests to the voicing to the dialogues, you know. No, I was scared. In fact, after I got busted, well, you know, I wasn't guilty or nothing, but.
The listeners don't know about getting busted. So we'll have to definitely go over that. But we're going to get into this very challenging time of your life. And from that time, you're experiencing PTSD. You've accumulated trauma.
Because I was afraid what's going to happen to my family. I got a lot of hate mail. The DA came after me. I got the newspapers over there. You can see later on. You can check them out. The DA came after me. They canceled 24 of my housing contracts with area housing, Section 8. Building and safety came after me. They search warrant my house. I was scared. And housing badmouthed me like hell. You know, oh, he's cheating. He's cheating the people. Flynn almost gave me an award for proving the conditions of El Rio and the housing. But yet they wanted me. They wanted me because of my philosophy and what I was doing for the people. Like Paulo Freire. I was reliving Paulo Freire's life. But, you know, he's powerful. And that's what they were saying in the newspapers. You know, I want to overthrow I'm a nationalist. Well, you know, Fernando, I have to get this out, you know. Mm-hmm. Rick helped me. One of my best friends, Roberto Juarez, developed the Clínicas. He had the same situation, but with a medical thing. Mm-hmm. Rick pushed me a lot. A lot of people helped me. Hey, you got to do it, man. It's a different world now. Well, you know what? I mean, you understand it because you're in education and you've experienced the resistance, you know, when you go against the grain. But I was scared, and I've been scared since I've done it. That's probably caused my cancer. But yeah, I was afraid.
I would say that these people impacted you in a way. You're talking about teaching over 40 years ago, and you remember them first and last name. So it's not, you're not talking about somebody who just came and went, or these people had an impact in your life and the lives of the community and the students that attended those schools. But I know, because I work in every high school in Oxnard Union High School District. I teach at Ventura College, East Campus, Main Campus. I teach all over, K through 12. And I know that there are teachers that care about the well-being of the students, the success of the students. That there's always going to be teachers that they're there to get a paycheck. But I know that at least right now, at least in our area, in our county, maybe not the whole county, I haven't taught at every school in the county, but I see good people trying to better the lives of every student, not just one or two.
So what you're saying is I was in a different era.
Oh, yeah. I think so.
It was more.
It was still there.
100 times more, yeah.
But you were fighting against, like trying to stop a tsunami with your hands.
Yeah.
And now, maybe there's still some resistance. I hear it. Believe me, I hear it all the time. I teach, we need to dumb down our curricula. We have to. It's like, no, do better. Teach and make your work culturally responsive. But it's wild to me. Like the stuff that you're talking about, again, is the stuff that I do. So it totally makes sense.
It's crazy.
I've never filled up an auditorium with that many people. I haven't. I know. Well, not by myself, not having my students doing it, but everything you're talking about is what I practice in my classroom. Students teaching each other, collaborative learning, working together, identifying problems, articulating it, voicing it. And there's some students in our schools today, freshmen. I can ask them their name. Hi, tell me your name. They're too scared to even say their name.
That's what the traditional education does, domesticate.
Yeah. So I know that the problem still exists, but I think that so far I haven't heard you say anything that the whole world, everything you've said, people should hear. They should understand, and they should be able to accept that we still need to make changes in education and encourage this type of dialogue.
With that curriculum, I know.
Yeah.
Well, all that To Destroy Me came out after I was getting all kinds of awards, GABE, state senate, people in education that had a lot of power. What I was doing, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, GABE, I was getting a lot of awards, and then I got the El Concilio Leadership Award in 1993, and I brought my students, and we started a dialogue about the schools, about the racism. And when I started to talk about the schools and the racism in the schools, people were walking out. But before that happened, there was an LA Times photographer that came in my room and was clicking like mad. Chicano, ponytail. I thought he was a good dude. Let me take a picture of you. Boom. And then after that, after I got the award, they planned it perfect. I seen my properties, picture of my properties, a picture of me from Canada to Mexico on the front page of the LA Times. And it says a teacher that's trying to,
It's 1 year
and that's
apart.
when they destroyed me,
I saw that. I saw LA Times, 1992, miracle worker. And then 1993, they're trying to destroy you. Yeah. It's incredible.
It is incredible.
And
Crazy.
I wonder why. Like, was it a personal agenda? Was it one person who knew somebody? Like, why? Did you feel it was a personal attack? Did you take it personally, all of this, as a
yeah.
response to your education?
Well, you know what? I didn't know what to think because I had some Latinos against me. I had people that hated me. But how did it get, it had to be somewhere in the county because the DA, what's the DA want to do with a teacher like me? Area housing, building and safety. So the person that did it probably was which I don't care. I don't care. It happened. But it had to be connected with the county or something. Maybe the county of schools, someone reported me or something. I don't know.
If they reported that you were making a positive impact in schools.
Yeah. I don't know what happened, but it did destroy me. I was silent for like 7 years.
Did you continue teaching?
And I lost a lot. I lost a lot in real estate because they canceled my And back then in the real estate business, if you're in a recession, you know how the houses are upside down? I got rid of about half of my real estate. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I was targeted in school by haters, by my faculty members. Hey, you deserved it, you deserved it, all that kind of stuff. Even calling me a slumlord, So it was pretty hurtful, but I got over it. Took a long time and $30,000 for a lawyer. And then they went to LA and they go, he didn't do nothing wrong. He didn't do nothing wrong with housing around. I should have sued housing. Yeah. But, that's the way it is. But you know what? I know myself I did something pretty courageous and pretty crazy. But you know what? I'd probably do it again. Because it gave me real meaning, Like right now, I can be on my bike or exercising, walking. I've had a bout with cancer. I still got it in me right now as I'm talking. And I say, God, why are you so freaking good to me? I have no pain. I'm still working like a young man. I do construction. I build walls. I do roofs. I'm 75 years old. God, why are you so good to me with my health and my family? And I have hardships. I know, Angel. You know what he tells me? Because of what you did in the world. My mother used to tell me that. She said, Mijo, people are going to judge you how good you are to the world. You always do good, and you always use your heart and your love for the world. And that's what he tells me. He says, you've done a lot, T. You've done civil rights. You impacted a lot of students, even though you almost got screwed up, even though you do have cancer, but you're kicking ass on that too. You know?
I definitely have thought the same things.
Good.
You know, I always feel as though if we continue, I'm not an angel either. I've had made some bad choices growing up throughout my life. I've been cruel to people. I've misspoken or said things that I shouldn't. All those things. But I spend every day trying to impact people's lives in a positive way, and I feel blessed. And a lot of people use that term very lightly. Another way I might say it is I'm very grateful to for the place that I'm in my life right now, after the tremendous struggle and challenges that I faced when I was younger. But I do ask myself, why I'm not Jeff Bezos, but I'm not Elon Musk, but I like
You're rich.
I feel good. Yeah, I walk away feeling
With what
good.
you did, you earned your Medal of Honor.
That's it.
That's the Medal of Honor that we've earned.
And the perspective that we have coming from maybe some humble beginnings and experiencing the lives of people that struggle around us, and I feel really grateful for everything that I have, without having to be the multimillionaire, without having to have the private jet. But if anybody wants to buy me a private jet,
I'll take it.
I probably wouldn't even take it. What am I going to do with it? I spend too much time teaching.
Yeah.
I need a little bit more clarity on the timeline. One thing that would help me is, so how long, you said you've taught for 40 years? You
40
taught
years.
for 40 years. So with all the challenges that were happening, it didn't stop you from teaching, right? But you said that you became silent. In your teaching style, in the community, like what, when you say that you were silenced?
Okay. I said I learned the cultura of silencios from Paulo Freire, of my students. Like you say, what's your name? They don't answer. They put their head down. Something was wrong there. I've never been silent, except when I stuttered and I was just starting in.
Oh, okay. I thought you said when you were being kind of pretty much attacked and the attempt to destroy your business, your
Okay,
real estate.
then I was silent.
Just-
Okay,
that's the part I'm trying to understand.
Okay. I was hurt. I got in trouble. They took a chunk out of my family income. They took a chunk, and they knew where to hit. And sometimes I feel it led to my divorce. But whoever or the establishment or the system is so powerful. Come on, Malcolm X got shot, Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, the changers. That's expected. I don't want to die. It's not like I died or anything, but I knew I was going to get in trouble somewhere along the line. But, I was expecting it because I've been fearful since the beginning, since I started this. But what I want to say is my first 10 years or 15 years of teaching, I was teacher of the year every year. I was a good human being. I was teaching what they wanted me to. I was the most popular teacher on campus. They had to change the agenda to pick a teacher of the year because I was getting it every year. But then once I started, I put my foot down and I said, I got to make some change around here. They're hurting my people. When a teacher came up to me and says, you're not like them. You're not a Mexican like them, low life. You're a different type of Mexican. I go, hell with that shit. I better start doing something. I feel then like I feel now. I have to get this curriculum out for other teachers so they can do something. But I'm having problems with that because of my illness and And I don't know technology pretty good. And, you know, I got a family. I'm getting older. I still got the energy, though. And then one thing I forgot to mention is what helped me is connecting to the community. And Paulo Freire says that, you know, I didn't have a safety net, you know. I did it by myself because I didn't know better. And I didn't know it was I knew it was critical, dangerous work, but I didn't know it was going to be that dangerous. And I didn't get the right help I needed. If I would have got, and I did, after a while, the chamber backed me, the board backed me, LULAC really helped me a lot. In fact, LULAC changed a lot of things in our district. And it was because of me and my students. And I was LULAC. Yeah, no, they went after David Rodriguez, Dennis O'Leary, and Laura Espinosa, a lot of powerful Mexicanos in the chamber and in LULAC and in El Concilio. You know, they supported me because they're a Chicano. They knew I was right. The guy in the newspaper that does Vida, what's his name? Okay, he helped me a lot. He says, anything I'll put of you, Terrazas. So he helped me a lot. But don't do it alone. Get people behind you. Because if you do something alone, they'll destroy you. Remember, dismiss, discount, demonize, then destroy.
You don't want to go into making change alone.
Yeah.
You need to support the community.
You know, but when I really got in trouble with the LA Times, no one came forward. Only a couple of guys came forward. And I know their names. Andres Herrera, who was the mayor at the time, says, hey, man, when a Mexican does good in the world, you guys eat them up. They said I was a drug pusher because I had a Mercedes, because I was pretty, you know, well off from the real estate I had. But then I lost it like that, you know. And then Arturo Casillas, he was area housing. He says, Terrazas is doing everything legal, man. Stop picking on them. You know, those guys, Marcos, they wanted them to take the award away from me because of my activism. And El Concilio board said, no way, we're not taking the award back. You know. So I got a little bit of support, but not the support I thought I would get. I had to be silent at school because the teachers were pointing their, I told you he was no good, you know, that kind of stuff.
So you were an activist in education. And I think that's beautiful. I really do. Weird things happened to me in my youth growing up. Like you said, you went to Cal State LA.
Yeah.
I went to Cal State LA. I started going there when I was 11, and one day I'm walking and I'm lost because it's a big campus, and I took the bus from, you know, I don't know how far. It was a long bus ride, and I'm lost on the campus, and I see my uncle. And this, I want to bring up this story because you were a coach, but I see him there, and he's like, hey, Albert, my middle name, Albert, what are you doing here? So I go to school here. What are you doing here? He goes, well, I'm a coach here. And he was a basketball coach and a fencing coach. His name is Noel Maldonado. I don't know if you ever had the chance to meet him, but it's around the same time. And seeing my uncle there was very surprising, but also very motivating, knowing that my family could go to college and succeed in life. And you've mentioned definitely two people. One called you a genius, and then after elbowing you a couple times on the basketball court, said, hey, you should be a teacher. It was two people that motivated you. From after years of being told that you would amount to nothing, that you couldn't make it, that you wouldn't go to college. Do you ever have students reach out to you and say, hey, you changed my life? Do you still interact with some of the students that took your classes, that have gone on to college? Do you ever hear from any of them?
Well, when you first started, it brought back some memories. You know, after all the put downs that I wasn't a good student, that I wasn't college material, I turned out to be not only a teacher, but an entrepreneur, a real estate developer. I built 3 houses in my life, and I built them like Aztecs. Forget the level or the mathematics or the Hi, we're the Aztecs. We built the pyramids. Forget the levels. I know it's in my blood. Calculas is in our blood. And I used to inspire people. But, you know, after that lesson and becoming a teacher, if any student ever came to me, my counselor said, I can't go to college. I go, you go back to your counselor. And this was a regular in my class. And the counselors hated me. You go back to the counselor and you say, excuse me, Mr. Smith, do you have a God degree? Are you God to tell me how my future is going to turn out? I don't see a God degree here. And the counselor used to get pissed off. And I remember doing that because, you know, here these people want to turn me off. And you're right. We're all geniuses. We're all geniuses in our own heart. But if I would have listened to people in my life, all the put downs in real estate, everything. When I started buying real estate, people told me, you can't do that, man. You can't fix up a house. But my wife gave me confidence, and my father, and even my best friend that taught me the trade says, that's too much. And I did it, and I ended up with 40 units, you know what I mean? And they were giving me houses. But, you know, I think back to those teachers. And one time I seen that auto shop teacher that called me a dirty Mexican because we would steal the oil to put in our cars because we didn't have the money. I seen him at the reunion, and they go, guess what, Terrazas? Mr. White's over there. Go kick his ass. I says, yeah, I'm going to tell him how he hurt us. And I went up to him, and he was a little old man like this. I go, Mr. White. And they turn, and he goes, yes, son. Can't kick his ass. He said, oh, he's probably suffered in his life. He looks sickly anyway. You know, I didn't do it. And then the other question at the end you said, what was it?
Just more have people reached out to you.
Oh, yeah. You know, the biggest gift on teaching is they don't stop coming. Everywhere I go, almost every other day, if not maybe 4 times a week, I'll see one of my students. In fact, the McDonald's I go to every day, Rick, you know, when he comes with us at McDonald's, the manager's my ex-student, some of the workers are. Everywhere I go. I've seen them in Hawaii, I've seen them in Las Vegas. I see my students everywhere. And yeah, you know, and then when I'm eating, Terrazas, they don't see me because I'm so skinny and flaco and bald and getting old. They see me with my voice. Is that you, Terrazas? Oh man, that's the biggest joy. That's the blessing when you talk about God. That's next to that. You know, when the student. In fact, a lot of my students there's about 5 that stuck by me, you know, and keep calling me, you know, because I mean these are students that were poverty, no dad, no mother, you know, his mother's died, you know. They've been in tough places, but they survived, you know. My most powerful student is on one of the pictures over there. Her name's Adriana Hassel. She's on the border right now working for a Quaker outreach on immigration. She's powerful. And her sister was the next powerful thing. She became a high school teacher but couldn't take it and became a flamenco dancer and had a school. Then she went back to teaching. Yeah, but... there's another student in there that talked to Bill Clinton, and another student that was on the peace train that went through Bosnia, all over the world, and met with students from all over the world. Oh, and I didn't tell you this at this conference. Yeah, bring me that one, Mia. That's Paulo Freire right there. And when I got this picture, it says there, I don't know exactly, but 1993, he was the keynote speaker at Gabe. 20,000 people at the, Anaheim Convention Center, I think? I forget where it was. And he says, I'm not going to speak to anybody here because of the United States retaliation in the Persian Gulf. I'm not going to talk. You guys are too aggressive with other people. I'm not going to speak. And he boycotted, but I'm going to speak to Terrazas and his students. Híjola! I was, what? And all of these people from Cabe, the board and their followers, set it up. He says, no one's done what you've done, and we're going to set up a dialogue with Paulo Freire. So these students We all made a circle, and after the conference cleared out, he came down and we dialogued with Paulo Freire.
That's great.
And then to end his life, guess who he dedicated? Guess who Gabe dedicated? When he died, Gabe came out with this book. And this guy's big time. I don't know if you know Paulo Freire. Is it this one? Well, this is what the picture looks like. He has a bigger one. He came out in memory of Paulo Freire, and we came out in his death, Paulo Freire. Isn't that something? So that was a big honor.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest moment of my life, because he affected me in my life, academically,
Sure.
to change the world,
September
something.
19th.
Yeah.
That's my dad's birthday.
That's this
Not the-
picture. Yeah, your dad's birthday.
It was September
That's
19th.
that picture at
54.
the Gabe
That's cool.
conference, yeah.
Yeah.
That's something. And then I have a little story of him. I keep this hung in my office.
Mm-hmm.
He, a professor at university. This guy's a husband, has a lot of kids, still crazy. She's a supervisor in the medical profession. He's an emergency technician. She's the one on the border, Adriana. She keeps in touch. He keeps in touch. I see him once in a while. She's up north. And he's blind, and he was gay, and he doesn't reach out anymore. So, people go their own way.
That's wild. One question, and I'm definitely inviting you back. We want to go. I want to go into how you've you were diagnosed with cancer. How many- over 10 years ago.
10 years, maybe 9, I forget.
So I definitely want to have you back so we can talk about how you've continued your life and found new ways to be healthy and.
Yeah, this is really important, man. It's really important because our community, Latinos and poor people, it's killing us. It's devastating. I mean, I'm probably a PhD in supplements and health now because I was gonna die. Mm-hmm. The doctor gave me 1 year to live if I didn't get my prostate removed. But people don't know that when you remove your prostate from a man, that really devastates your life. In fact, your suicide rate goes up 40%. And I know some people, have done it and they're saying they live a good life, but no, they're telling you a lie because men don't talk about sex. You know that. But he said, you got to do it. He pressured me to do it too. I always forget his name. I was just talking to someone about it because, my life is cancer. It's preventive. It's longevity. It's survival. You know what I mean? That's my life now. Because if I don't do what I'm doing, I'm going to die. Because prostate cancer is our second biggest killer, and men don't go to get checked, just like colon cancer. But it's also a main hormone for men. And my doctors lied to me. I had to go to several doctors, and I had to go to UCLA, and the head of UCLA, good-looking doctor, he says, man, we can add 10 years to your life. But he didn't tell me about the suicide rate, wearing a diaper for the rest of your life, committing suicide, anxiety. You got to wear a diaper like a baby. You have no sex drive whatsoever. Your sex life is gone. So, and I know that. And sometimes I tell people that already had it, they go, I'm good. I want to say, you freaking liar. You're hurting, man. I've researched doctors that are crying that they're going to change their techniques because prostate cancer in older men, it's possible you're going to die of something else because it's a slow growing cancer, yet it's deadly, but you got to be tested constantly and, MRIs yearly. You got to have blood tests every 3 months. I'm better. I'm down to having blood tests every 6 months now. And my PSA, which measures the cancer in your blood, that gives you your first warning. But some of the things I discovered about doctors, about the medical profession, the Latino community's got to hear this, man. Because doctors have taken the lives of a lot of men that didn't need it. And I've listened to doctors cry, we went too early. The ones who die of cancer, if you get it especially prostate. They're finding it in college kids. Old people's diseases are happening more often because of diet. Well, I don't want to get on. I'll save
we'll
the
save
health
it.
thing, but
So let me close this one by asking the question that I ask all of our guests. I ask the same question, and that is, if you have all the resources in the world, you have the manpower, the time, the money, is there one thing that you would change in the world right here, right now, to make it a better place for everyone?
yeah, I would take down every border there is in the world, every fence, every border in the world, because we are so greedy with these rich, with this 1% that owns everything, that we can stop disease, poverty, suffering in one day. But this 1%, affects the whole world. Homelessness, no homelessness. I mean, they can, like Basil, with one rocket launch, which is like what, $12 billion to send $6 billion, you can stop homelessness in LA or probably all over the world and open these borders, because they're human beings, and God didn't want borders, because United States and all the big countries in the world, Europe, the United Kingdom, Australia, and us, we have to open the world and save the world, because the dictators, the drug cartels, the homelessness, the oppression in these other countries, these people are coming for their lives. Probably that. There's probably still going to be racism, but they're going to give human beings an opportunity. But every time, even my family, every time I mention, we're a society that blames the victims. Your color, it's your fault. One shoe fits all. We're teaching all the wrong things. But when you do something as crazy as I did, which it's the truth, what the educational system's doing to make us out of consumers, and this greed we have in America, the one percenters. Of all the wealth in the world, 15% has it all. No, 15% has all, and 85% of the population has to share that, what's left, which is 15%. And of the 15% that have all the wealth and the riches and the imports, 1% owns 90% of that. Come on, economic. What do you call it? The distribution of wealth, totally not equal at all. That's why we have homelessness, because of greed. But I don't know. But you did a good job, because you make me, just looking at your face and knowing where you've been, you really made me relax. I got it out better. Didn't even stutter, just a little bit.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you felt comfortable.
But I'm glad that you gave me this opportunity. I think it's going to help me. There's a lot of us run around with trauma, generational trauma. And one thing related to my work in education is generational trauma of my father being wounded, devastating wound. I was, my sister was born and I was born to a woman who her husband was devastated, came back a cripple from a star athlete. And I think, and being raised by my father because he couldn't work, his trauma, I soaked that in. And my mother's trauma. So it really screwed up, what I was in the world. I coped with it good. And I just found out about it less than a year ago. I went through a whole year of therapy because I read Garbeau Mate. Have you ever read him? Mm-hmm. Okay, I got to tell your listeners about him. He talks about your body is only one half of your illness. The trauma and stress in your life is the other half.
Oh, I believe that.
And so when I went to therapy, this one therapist, I found out about how I have generational trauma. Racism is trauma. That's probably how I got cancer, or I got it from the cement in the mixing concrete.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
And you brought up your father again, and I know we're moving towards closing this conversation, for now. But I read a quote. I think you said that your father said to you, you're able-bodied. You have.
Who told you that, Rick?
No, I read it in an article for sure, recently.
So what you do is you research us before you interview.
Of course,
Hey, man, that is powerful. I'm glad you said that. When I used to cry, and from generational trauma from being an infant that my mother gave me, and then my father raised me from a star Olympian to an invalid. He could barely walk. He had a severe walk. And I endured that when he raised me up in State Street in East LA, right next to the General Hospital. But he loved me with a passion, and I knew it. He was very disciplined, and he used to walk me around the General Hospital. And I had to wear braces because he'd overwalk me. But when I used to cry, he would say, Cabron, because that was my name, because he couldn't speak. It was hard for him to speak. So when you learn a new language, what do you learn first?
cuss
A
words.
cuss word. So my father couldn't speak. So what was my name?
Wow.
It was Guillermo, pendejo, cabrón, baboso, terrazas.
No way, come on.
All my life. Baboso, come over here. Cabrón, did you brush your teeth? Pendejo, what did I tell you? Pendejo. He still called me pendejo the day he died, man. Maybe he couldn't pronounce my name. I couldn't even pronounce my name when I stuttered. And maybe I got the stutter from him. Who knows? And another thing that really hit my students is the stories that I tell them. I learned profound stories on and affirmations. I mean, I have CDs in my classroom. I have CDs of all my students' voices, and I want to get it on the internet so other teachers can see it and what's possible. But I have about 35 of those videos, and I even have in lunch we used to have race relations dialogues where we have the black race come in, the Filipinos, the Vietnamese, and the Mexican, and we used to have powerful dialogues. So powerful that students fall off their chairs or they argue or you can't fight, and then other students come and hold them back. We had a dialogue with ASB, the privileged people. You know what ASB is? The Associated Student Body. The cheerleaders, the football stars, the academia kids, the honor students. And I had students who were basic, standard, Latinos, oppressed kids, man. But once they learn pedagogy, you don't F with those guys. Because they're vario and they got a voice. And that makes them more powerful. And we had a dialogue with it. And they cried. They cried. But that onion peel that I talked about, how you got to peel off the onions for Latino students or any oppressed student. Because when the students forgive me, they don't like me, man. You're a reverse racist that you can't even speak Spanish. I have fights with them because they don't believe that Mexicans are excluded from the movie industry, from NSNBC, from CBS News. They don't believe Latinos. They're not no famous, J-Lo, yeah. But what about the other thousands, They didn't know about discrimination. They don't see it. They just accept it. And once they see it, and once they get the curriculum, they explode, man. Nothing holds them back. That's what I'm very proud of. Paulo Freire and my dad. Oh, did I finish about my dad? Oh, man. See how I jump?
It's okay.
That's my
That's how I
ADHD.
am too.
My dad's hand was like this. His leg was shriveled up too. He wore a 70-pound brace that screwed up his hip. He used to say, Cabron, don't cry. Why are you crying? Look at me. Look at my hand. I can't fix my hand. Look at my leg. He had a platinum plate in his skull. Look at my scar. I can barely talk to you, but he communicated with me good. He goes, don't be a llorón, man. You're not, look what you got. You got your whole body. And you're crying to me? And that's what you teach students too, about hardship and risk and failure. And a lot of my affirmations were about failure, like no guts, no glory, no pain, no gain. Suffering is optional. Oh, I got to tell you this story before I leave, because this is the best story in the world. I'm in my classroom. I just got selected by the state of California, by Delane Eason, to be on the committee for Latino change, And he knocks on my door, boom, boom, boom. I go, Terrazas, I just got a letter that you've been selected by the state superintendent to represent the Latinos in California. I go, yeah. And he looks at me and says, how did you get selected? And then he walks into my room and he goes, what is this? Because I had all my research papers of all my students. And I had buckets of those research because it's student-created knowledge. Mm-hmm. If other students want to make a report, the library's right there. Because I had hundreds of those butcher paper. I would get their reports and roll them up, put them in a rubber band. Whoever wanted to make a report that you wanted, just go to the bucket. We didn't have to go to the library. We had information there. Shoot, the internet would even be better, man. Well, anyway, he looks in my room and he sees all the butcher paper and all the flags of every nation of students represented. And he goes, Terrazas. He couldn't even pronounce his name. He was 7-foot basketball player from UCLA. His name was Jim Nielsen. And he goes, I know about you. The administration told me about you. You're not going to get away with nothing. Where's the American flag, he says. He's looking around. Is this a Mexican ASB? And I go, no, this is my classroom. And then he looks, he's 7 foot. He's almost 7 foot. And he looks down and he says, come on, where's the American flag? And I showed him. And then I look up at him and I go, you know who I am? You know who my father was? And he goes, who? My father was in the second wave of D-Day. He's one of the most decorated veterans in East LA, fighting for this country. And you tell me and dehumanize me and accuse me of hiding the American flag? My father died, almost died for that flag. Never come in my class and tell me I'm un-American or I'm not patriotic. The next week he called me in his office and he says, hey, I had enough of you. I go, you know, Nielsen, this is not your school. It's the student school. It's the parent school. You're not going to be here for long. They fired him a month later.
Dang.
If you or someone you know is experiencing suicidal thoughts, please call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. For victims of child abuse, domestic violence, or sexual assault, you can get help at the Safe Harbor inside the Family Justice Center by calling 805-652-7655. All services are free of charge and confidential. Addiction is treatable. Recovery from drug and alcohol problems start with a call or an email. For Ventura County Behavioral Health Substance Use Treatment Access Line, call 844-385-9200 or email sudservicesventura.org.